Hey guys, how's it going? Phil Monteleone, the book peddler, coming to you from my little bookstore in Smithville Flats, New York. If you haven't, I hope you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Book Peddler. Stay up to date on book picks, in-store, out-store activity, business selling experiences, book reviews, a whole mess of stuff surrounding books, the book trade, the book world. I run a little shop out here. I'm surrounded by infinite riches in a small room. I just read that recently. I think it's appropriate to my shop. It's full of beautiful material. I enjoy what I do immensely. Now, in the description below are my social media links, my Facebook, my Instagram, and that's it, thank God. So but you check those out, guys. I try to stay somewhat active on them. Now, I appreciate everybody's feedback in the last video when I asked for requests of what my subscribers would like to see. And basically I'm going to address them in the coming video after this one. For this one, I wanted to honor a older request by Sonia Sherman up in Canada. So appreciate the request, Sonia. If you're still watching my channel, I appreciate the support. If you're not, I don't know, you did at one point, and so thank you for the request. I think it is an important one, and what she wanted to know was how to describe the condition for antique books. So I have a whole mess of books on the table, and I'm going to go through them with you, lay a little bit of groundwork, and approach this topic and try to give you the best video I can do. And I hope you find value in it. If you do, hit the like button. If you don't, I don't know what to tell you. Hit the other one. But thank you very much, Sonia. So let's get started. I'm going to walk to the table here. So basically, when it comes to describing the condition of books, oops, I left my glasses. When it comes to describing the conditions of books, it's obviously very important to understand what you're looking at and be able to identify certain issues. Because people are going to be buying these books, and you have to illustrate what's wrong with it. And a part of this is also knowing, book terminology. And so this is going to kind of play into both of these things, and you'll see what I mean. Because, like, say I'm going to show you what a blind stamp is. If there's something wrong with the blind stamp, a condition issue, it's more professional to use that proper term. So I mean, that's another important thing, is the air of professionalism when you're describing a book. And yeah, it kind of romanticizes it colors it a bit, but it's accuracy as well. So this by no means is going to be like an end all be all. And what I'm going to do is link in the description. ABA, I actually printed this out to look at, has a paper on basically a guide to book conditions, is the title of it. And so they have a bunch of terms here. I use a bunch of the terms, and half of them I don't. And usually how I started learning about what I was looking at is through stuff like this. And another great way is if you have a book and you look in another bookseller's catalog or something and see what he's written about. That's another way to pick up on a lot of terminology. And the more you handle it, the more it starts sinking in, and then you can write up something even quicker and whatnot, and be more proficient at it. So anyways, let's go to the table. I'm just going to do some basics. I'm going to take you through this stuff and how I kind of go about condition in recommendation. If I guess you're a new seller, maybe you want to get into this. This might give you a nice little jump start, and you can rewatch the video and say, "Oh yeah, that's what that is." Okay, it might help you out a little bit till it sinks in the noodle. So let's turn to these books and see what we got. Okay. So I laid out a bunch of different books. Now, certain terms that I talk about with antiquarian books, I also talk about in more modern books. But let's get started here. So this book here, this is a beautiful book, Seats and Castles of Scotland. So it's got its edges, its corners, right? These are called boards, front and back board, inner board. As you can see, a beautiful floral design here to it, and a blind stamp. This is a blind stamp, and blind stamps, just like this one as well. My Trappers in New York. It's basically a depression in the book. Okay, and now I'll come back to the blind stamp in a moment. But sometimes you'll see, like in my listings, it'll say, general edge and corner wear or shelf wear, maybe to the bottom of taking the book out. Let's look at the corners. See how the corners are kind of sloped inwards? So I would identify that. I'd say corners slightly sloped inwards and they're exposed. See, the cloth of this book is kind of torn at the corners, exposing the interior of the boards. So now, that's something to get you started. Now you also see a little bit of bubbling here. There's a faint stain to the front. Now, like a book like this, how I said, okay, we know now that this is a blind stamp. What do we have here? We have a gouge taken out in the middle of it. So now you can say that basically. This is cloth binding, both books. So this is just some basic terms here to use. And let me look inside here. So it's the inner board. These are the end pages, okay? And these are the four edges of the pages, top here. So sometimes, like, okay, this is gold, right? So I'll say four edges of the pages, gold gilt laid into it, or something of that nature, okay? And sometimes a book will have foxing just on the four edges of the pages, like this one here, and it doesn't actually sink into the interior. See, these pages are clean here, but it does have foxing on the four edges, outer pages here, where you say it also does have soiling. It's a bit dirty, right? So let's keep going into this Scottish book a little bit. So these are some plates. Okay, these are engravings is what they are. And a lot of times it'll actually say that right on the title page, or in this case, though, too, it says it right here under the plate, which might be a little hard to see because my camera doesn't want to focus well. But what this is called around it is foxing. Okay, it's some pretty heavy foxing right there, just like we looked at in this book on the top four edging of the pages. I believe this is what happens when dust gets into the book. Now, a lot of the engravings you'll find in the older books are protected by tissue paper or tissue guard. So you make note as well if this is missing to a book. Everything does affect the value to some extent or another. Obviously, someone would want this as perfect as a book as they can get. So, anyways, this is a beautiful antiquarian book. I forget the date on this. It's 18 something. But so that's just giving you a couple terms to use. Now, when it comes to, let's jump a little bit. One thing we'll look in this book. I didn't address it in this, but what you can say is the page across from the title page. This is called the frontispiece. Okay. Sometimes the frontispiece is heavily, like, this is toned. This is soiled, but so you can identify that maybe it's just the frontispiece that has an issue. Here's your title page. Okay, the pages before this are called end pages. You would say previous owner's name scripted on the first end page. It has some smudging. Okay, well, I don't. Yeah, that is kind of smudging. Smudge mark, like, if you see your thumb, somebody's thumb, the oils smudge. Okay, now on the reverse of the title page, it's called the verso. The reverse of the page right there. So being able, I'm going to flip it to myself real quick. Being able to identify what you're looking at, like book terminology, is going to help you also addressing the conditions. So I'm showing you right now different conditions and states of a book's condition, and I'm giving you a little bit of book terminology as well. So I think it all plays a role in this, in terms of identifying properly. So let me switch. Now, you'll have books bound in different kinds of ways. Okay, like these are cloth boards, right? This here is a vellum. It's like a fine skin book, basically. I guess I don't know how else to say it. These are leather. These are calf leather books. This one has actually been rebound, okay? Um, this is calf leather as well. Okay, so that you get a look. There are many different kinds of leather, actually, though, too. Like this is a tree calf leather right here on one of the books. See how it looks like a tree? What I'll link up in the description is something, if you want to get real crazy with it, which is going to talk about the different leathers and identifications. Okay, so that's just giving you a look, as to different bindings here. If you work with different ephemera, you'll probably handle parchment, stuff like that. Now, also, let me just address quickly the dust jacket. Dust jacket on more contemporary books are a very important part. Okay, you see how this dust jacket, this top front edge of the jacket is kind of curled forward. You can see the little tear here. Now, some books like this one will have some chipping here. So that's chipping, okay, and small tearing. The jacket is loose to the boards, okay, so you want to make note of that. It's not tight to the boards. It might have some scuffing. Let's see if the back does. It's a little toned, another little tear. But, some terms that are used are scuffing, smudging, might have some scratching. So these are terms that I'll use. Now let's so back to the dust jacket. So I talk about the jacket in my listings, and then I open it up and give a condition of the boards. We're talking about two separate things here. If the price is out of this one, if it's clipped, it's called price clipped. Okay. Collectors, sometimes in some ways, actually that price will be what determines it to be a first edition, believe it or not. That could in some cases be the only way to determine a book as being a true first edition. Publishers are all different, and you can buy reference books that will help you out with that. Now, when it comes to like the leather, okay, there's also something called 3/4 leather, three quarto, believe. So this is where basically it's self-explanatory. It's 3/4 of the book is leather. This is the spine in the corners, and same with on the back. This board, you could describe it as a pebbled board. It's rough. Okay, can you hear that? It's a little rough. So that's 3/4 leather here. And you want to be able to distinguish real leather from fake leather. Okay, this is fake leather. Okay, it's and these also, you see the molding there. I'll touch on that in a minute. But it's very important, and a lot of times in books like this, if it's made with genuine leather, it'll state that. In more of the modern ones, like I've seen that a lot. In the older ones, it's not going to, but you'll have to check out the thing that I link up for on leather books. So be able to determine the real deal from the Fugazi, okay? This book has a lot of heavy mold, okay? Sometimes on the leather, you will get mold spores. It can be treated. I've never treated, this is kind of my experimental book. I just haven't even had an interest to do it, but I will. This book also has a bookmark, as we know, but we'll call it, a sewn in book ribbon. Does it sound better? Maybe. I don't know what to tell you. Okay, here's another one. 3/4 leather. Okay, now I'll show you some finely bound books. Okay, here's some beautiful fine bound books by, I think it's Riviere binding. Really pretty. Now you see these sticking up here. These are called ribs. Let me try to focus the camera. These cameras, I mean, as good as they're supposed to be, sometimes you wish it was something that could feel pain, that you can inflict a little. These are called ribs, okay? They protrude out. These here, vignettes, okay? That's what I call them anyways. And, you say, so when you're describing a book, I'm going to flip it real quick. When you're describing a book, it could be like, fine bound leather book, ribbed binding, with floral vignettes. Doesn't that sound nice? Floral decoration. Now, when we look inside this book, see the marbling? I'm going to link up a page that talks specifically about marbling. Based on the design, it has different terminology for. Again, it's how crazy do we want to get. But the thing is, I'll show you this marbling as well. It's like a swirl, okay? But the thing is that the more you know, the more you can just put a name to it, man, the prettier it sounds, don't it? So, um, now let's look at this here. Hold on a minute, folks. There we go. Let's look around this edge here. I believe this is what's called a dentral. Okay, these are hand tooled. They're very pretty. I think where that word comes from is it's like an architectural word, and it's like a decorative band basically around this book. So again, dentral. Then you'll have hinges, or I think sometimes called ribs. It's where the binding meets the spine, basically the interior, or hinges. So I'm sorry, not ribs. So again, more terms and more conditions to note. Sometimes you'll see in a listing where it says the hinges are broke, okay, and the binding's loose. Sometimes if some of the text in the binding is loose, I believe it's called shaken. You might have a book like, say, we all know the word slanted, right? Like if this book wasn't level like this and maybe the board is moved forward a bit and it's slanted, or you find that with an antiquarian book, it's called cocked, okay? So remember that if you can. It just, again, throwing different terms at you. Now, a lot of books, like here's a nice book. I'm actually going to read this book, or at least skim through it. Sketches of some booksellers of the time of Dr. Johnson. You see these pages? So when you see pages that are kind of uneven like that and everything, and you look into it, these are all hand cut. Okay, these are cut pages. And you'll find sometimes where these pages are connected. And in terms of desirability level, collectors will, I believe anyhow, but every collector's different, prefer the pages uncut. Again, it's not going to destroy the value, but anyhow, untouched antiquarian books are pretty great. Look, this has some creasing to the corner. Okay, sometimes the pages will have rabbit ears or creasing to them. So now I'll show you something else. And again, this is another important thing. To be able to tell if it's an engraving that's illustrated, a chromiolithograph, it is important. In this book here, so what do we have here? We have some foxing, pretty heavy foxing. Look at that. So these are called tipped in pages. Why? It's because I believe like this is glued here at the top, and these are loose. These plates are loose. So they're called tipped in. So you can talk about that. Look at how toned this page is. This is called toning. Okay. Sometimes you'll have all the pages that are kind of evenly toned. Sometimes it'll be just particular pages. So like actually these pages might naturally just be darker. I don't believe so, and look, you see on the four edges of the pages, there's foxing on those, right? So you make note of everything. Also, like you'll have some of these things, like look at this book. I was trying to list that one today. It's sunned, this ain't exactly faded, but sometimes the sun can darken a book. It can fade out a book. So you make note of that as well. Now let me flip. I'm starting to sweat. It was like 80 something degrees in here. I hope you guys are enjoying this, by the way. If you've lasted this far, hit the darn like button. I mean, shoot. So let me see. Some other terms are bowed. Covers or boards of a hardcover book, board. Bowed, covers may turn inwards toward the leaves or outward away from the leaves. So this has to do with moisture and whatnot. Darkening and fading, edgeware, ex-library, make note of typical library marks and stampings and whatnot. I went over foxing, loose, price clipped. Some of these I don't use, but like rebacked or rebound, things of that nature. Know when a book is rebound, basically. Use your references, and you want to make note of that. Okay, some rebinding jobs are so professional, so excellent, and some are just outright terrible, to be quite honest with you. shaken, shelfware. So I think I covered a lot of these, but I'll link these pages up for you guys. I'm just trying to make sure that I've covered it all, and I believe I have. You know, sometimes I used to like almost think I made up words for some of this stuff, and I probably did, which is kind of funny. But I mean, one rule of thumb that I personally have used, and what I do is, or and maybe what you should do is that if you have any doubts as to the book's condition, um, grade it a step lower. Okay, this way and be able obviously to talk about it well to some extent, but I would say grade it a step lower so that the buyer isn't disappointed, you know. Instead of being a fine book, maybe it's very good. Instead of very good, maybe it's good, maybe it's fair. Use your best judgment. One thing that I used to do, and which I regret doing, but now I don't do it this way, is I would actually rate the book a step higher than it was, because I felt like it'll make the sale quicker, and which it probably will, and just have everything in the condition set right. So that was what I would do, and it's not quite being deceiving, but it kind of is. And sometimes I would kind of have an issue, but not all of the time. I mean, so now I try to grade a step below, but it's all up to your, it's all very subjective. So what I use at the end of the process of writing in about the book is I'll say, now if the interior has markings or smudging or foxing or writing, I always make note of that. Of course, we're humans. We can miss things at times. Okay, you might miss, I gotta switch hands. You might miss that crease in one of the corners or a underline mark. It happens. Okay, I don't know. You can't do much about that. Okay, it happens. But try to pay attention to the detail. But what was I going to say? At the end of every listing, when it comes to the condition, I kind of safeguard myself in a sense. I'll say, see pictures for condition references and ask questions before purchasing. So I'm trying to take pictures of condition issues. If I don't have enough, I try to at least put it in the description. And of course, giving the buyer the potential to ask me anything and to go back into the book and either send them more photos or what have you. Now, I will say, so again, even though I've talked about condition and everything to those new sellers out there, um, book terminology is really important, and I think it goes hand in hand with condition. You want to sell these books. Another thing that I haven't spoken on, and I'm not going to, but it's establishing provenance with the antiquarian books. It is important. People love things that have a provenance to them. And again, I've said this guy's name a number of times. Adam Weinberg in the city. The guy is excellent at taking the time, or someone in his team, and finding the provenance of the book. I currently have a militia manual from Massachusetts, okay? The man who owned the book and who wrote on the end page was a member of the Massachusetts militia. Uh, I, I, my time is always pressing, okay? I've tried to search who this guy is. I can't find nothing about it. I'm not great all the time at trying to establish something like that, but definitely recognize the benefit that it could be in linking a story. Okay, everybody likes things with stories. Yeah, you could make them up, I guess, if you want, but you know, I'm not going to do that. Okay, so besides the point, know your terminologies, know your conditions, and I think you should be okay out there. So I hope, Sonny, that answers your questions. I hope you guys found some value out of this. If you have any questions about this, please leave a comment below. I covered what I could. I didn't. I probably missed something, but I'm doing the best I can here, folks. So thanks for sticking with me, guys. And I'll have another video come at some point. Until then, hope you're well. Take care.